Hey, what's up guys? Node Investor here, bringing you a quick update on the markets following the 7,000 Bitcoin level. If you were with me the other night, we were having a live stream as it was approaching 7,000. We are now above that, so I'm just going to give a quick update, one of my thoughts, where are the alts, and just some interesting action I'm seeing here in the last couple of days. So here is the chart of Bitcoin, the 1 hour chart on Bitfinex, and you can see I've been tracking this steady climb, and I've been talking to some people here saying as long as this trend holds, it's strong, but keep in mind the RSI was starting to diverge here. If we zoom in a little bit, you can see on the 1 hour chart RSI was starting to come down here, MACD, and sure enough we're starting to see a little bit of a rollover here, a little bit of a trend change in the very near term. Keep in mind this is the 1 hour chart. If we zoom out to the 4 hour chart, it was very extended off of the moving averages. I tend to follow the 10 EMA closely, and you can see on this 4 hour chart we've just been marching along very nicely, pulling back to that 10 EMA several times, but here we're starting to see a little bit of a trend change now. And at one point we were pretty extended from that 10 EMA. We were up about 6% or so on the daily chart. So on the daily chart we were extended quite a bit here. So if you look at one point, we were up almost 16%, and that's pretty significant. And we've seen that in the past where it goes up quite a bit over that 10 EMA, and you know, here we're up 20%, and it tends to just take a little bit of a breather at that point at least. I'm not saying it's going to just roll over here and start to correct, but it's certainly overdue for a pullback. You can see these wicks starting to show up here, big volume on some of that reversal. So even a pullback down to the moving average would be completely normal here, but that's pretty significant. I mean, that could be a 7-8% drop from this point. 65, 6600. There's a lot of strength and support. I don't think we'd see it go that far, but this has just been a very steady climb, and so there really isn't a lot of strong support levels until you get all the way down to this 6200 level. And so it could just pause anywhere along the way here. If we look at the 30 EMA, that's right now down to about 6700. That could be another level to look at. And so I'm thinking we might just pause here, maybe go sideways a little bit heading into the fork. Now everyone's still talking about what happens into the fork. Are we going to see Bitcoin continue to rally? Is it going to just go parabolic here? Are we going to see 8,000? You know, it's definitely feeling extended here in the near term. We've seen the last couple days the RSI level starting to hit these high 80 marks. So it's due for a pause, and best case scenario would be if this just sat tight and went sideways, maybe consolidated here for a few days and then marched higher going into that week of the fork. Now the question is, what are the altcoins going to do in that event? And we're starting to see the altcoins starting to at least hold par with Bitcoin and even outperform here a little bit. So let's take a look at a few charts here. If you look at Ethereum versus Bitcoin here in the last couple of days, you can see where it's really started to go sideways here. It's starting to round out, and now just today we're seeing this little bit of a breakout versus Bitcoin. So I'm thinking Ethereum is one of the names that is going to really benefit on a Bitcoin pause or pullback, just because it's been so oversold versus Bitcoin, and it's one of the bigger names. So some of the bigger money, the bigger institutions are going to be a lot more comfortable going to a name like Ethereum, where the volume and liquidity are high, versus one of the smaller altcoins. The smaller altcoins, however, are going to have a much larger percent pop. Just keep in mind that the risk and the volatility is much higher too. And so I'm looking at Ethereum. I'm liking this little bit of a breakout it's starting to put in, but this little sideways consolidation that we've seen here in the last day or two, you're seeing a lot of that in several of the altcoins. And so that's a good sign that they're just saying no more. If Bitcoin keeps going up, we're going to keep par, go sideways with it, and we're also actually starting to see some little breakouts here to the upside. So I'm liking that. Ethereum's on my at the top of my list here. Another one, let's take a look at Litecoin, see how that's doing versus Bitcoin. Again, going sideways here, could potentially start edging out here. Look for a breakout above this little bit, you know, the 79, 790, even 88,000 or 800,000 Satoshi level on Bitcoin, on Litecoin. And so these are the kind of patterns you're starting to see show up in a lot of these altcoins. Some other names to keep an eye on, Stratis was one that I was watching today here. So you're seeing Stratis. Now Stratis had what I would say is almost a classic climactic bottom here. So let me zoom out to the daily chart. So we're putting in this big double bottom on Stratis. And so you can see we had this double bottom about a week and a half ago, and now we're seeing this big tail down here just the other night when Bitcoin shot above 7,000. But look at the volume that was associated with that. Just huge volume. Sellers are getting exhausted there. That's usually the climactic selling that you look for at the lows. And very often you're going to at least see a good bounce following a move like that. And certainly we're starting to see that. We saw it bounce into that 10 EMA earlier today. Whether we see some follow through is yet to be seen, right? And it always just kind of depends, how do they react if Bitcoin rallies. But this is a sign. So if you're a long-term holder in Stratis, or if you're looking to get in a longer position, these are the type of moves you're looking for, not just in Stratis but in some of these other altcoins, because it just kind of shows you a little bit of a washout level where at this point risk is going to be a little bit less because some of the sellers have been exhausted here. If you look at the RSI levels, I was pointing this out the other day, is we're seeing a little bit of a bullish divergence on the RSI. So you see the RSI didn't quite go as low, that second bottom, and MACD is really not doing a whole lot here, but the RSI is another indicator that's showing that that probably was a good near-term low. If we zoom in here in the near term, you can see Stratis kind of holding tight, and this is Stratis versus the dollar. Here on Stratis versus Bitcoin, again, you can see it just going sideways here in the last couple of hours, the last couple of days, and that's following that big climactic selling. Now, you always want to wait to see some follow through, but we're starting to edge up higher, so if you start to see more upside here, could get a pretty decent bounce on Stratis. And looking at the 4-hour, you're seeing some volume starting to show up, but again, this is still a very bearish chart. The positive news is it's starting to go sideways versus Bitcoin, and those are good signs of a potential bottom being put in. Another one we were talking about was Decred. Decred was putting in a very large double bottom. Now this is a lower volume name typically, but looking at the daily chart, really similar to Stratis, where you got this big double bottom and bullish divergence showing up here both on the MACD and the RSI. And so that's what you want to be looking for. Now we didn't quite see that big washout volume that we did like on Stratis, but nevertheless a good sign here. And at the very minimum, a lot of these names just look this way and are overdue for a bounce at least. And so even a bounce up to the moving averages is going to give you 10-15%. And it's a long ways from confirming a double bottom because it has to really start to rally here. But that's a huge percent rally just to start putting in a big base. But on the macro level, looking at the bigger picture, these are the kind of charts that you want to start looking for, these big double bottoms, you know, the big rounded bottoms or triple bottoms, and then start paying attention to those and look for confirmation of the trend reversal, and we'll start to see more and more of those show up. A big surprise today was Ethereum Classic. Huge volume move off of the low here. This is the daily chart, but if you zoom in on the hourly, just out of nowhere really started to rally. Huge volume coming in, hit a little bit of a climactic top in the very short run. That's the 1-hour charts, but even on the 4-hour chart, I mean, just look at that action. And you know, I'm starting to see a lot of this over the last couple of days. Some of it is rumor pumps and some of it is names being thrown out there, but a lot of this is these big pops, these big rallies coming into these names. Just be cautious with these because I'm seeing a lot of them fizzle out. There's a lot of profit taking that just happens right into these rallies, but you need to start paying attention because when you start to see those are signs of a bottom, especially something like this where it's hit these multiple lows. Look for those pops, and then a little bit of a consolidation period for a couple of days might set up a nice entry on those type of charts. So quickly cycling through a handful of other names, here's the chart of Neo. This is the daily chart. Again, just very oversold near term. If we look at the RSI levels, I mean, these are hitting extreme lows here, down in the 30s, and in the near term you're starting to see the same pattern show up. This is the 1-hour chart of Neo. You can see here it's starting to go sideways, starting to hold par and even outperform slightly versus Bitcoin. Omise Go is another one that's doing something very similar. Again, a little bit more choppy here at the lows, but just all around showing good signs that it's starting to hold these lows. Let's look at 10x. Again, starting to outperform in the last day or so. And again, this is with Bitcoin pulling in. So this is the direct negative correlation to the Bitcoin chart in many ways. You've seen that Bitcoin rally, broke that 7,000 mark, quickly ran up to 7,400, and now it's pulling in, and the altcoins are starting to correlate that inversely. Now, if Bitcoin starts to rally again and heads back up to 73, 7,400 or higher, That's going to be interesting to see if it squashes this rally on the altcoins, or if they begin to hold par with Bitcoin and stay tight. So here's Quantum, again, another one to keep an eye on there. Waves had some volatility here recently, just a big pump, big sell-off, but starting to edge up again. And Ripple did the same thing yesterday. We saw that big pump on Rumor pulling in, and so just be careful with these. This is not the market to FOMO, and so if you miss them, it's okay, just let them go. There'll be more opportunities. You can see Zcash here had a big rally pulling back in, and so if you miss those big rallies, don't chase the big green candles. Wait for a pause or a pullback, or another setup. Again, all of these altcoins are just at the extreme lows, have been really in a bear trend for several weeks to a month and a half now, and so there's going to be opportunities when they start to reverse. So just be patient, look out for those setups. Here's another one. Bitcoin Cash again has been very strong, pulling in now, but it needed to. It's just been one of the stronger names here in the last couple days. You can see it was getting a little bit extended here, and putting in a little bit of a double top here that it had a couple days ago at that big pop, came down, putting in another little bit of pop, pulling in now. So I'd be cautious on this one if you're looking to get in or holding it. So that's going to be it for tonight, guys. Just a quick end of week update. We'll keep you posted as the market progresses. For now, just keep an eye on Bitcoin. Bitcoin is really the thing to watch at this point, because it's going to really dictate what a lot of this market does here in the near term going into the next fork. Until next time, take care, everyone.